I'd like to call to order the Health and Human Service Committee of May 3rd, 2023. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Royal adopts the agenda.
Support Zinner.
Seeing no speakers, please call the roll.
Sickle, yes.
Motion to approve the minutes of the joint meeting of April 12th, 2023.
Song votes yes. Support.
Please vote.
Sickle, yes.
Oh, I was waiting for the, sorry. I move up ahead of her, so I'm trying to give her time to catch up.
Motion passes 10-0.
All right, now we'll move on to public participation. Anyone that wishes to speak will have 3 minutes to speak on any related agenda item. If anyone would like to speak at this time. Seeing no speakers, we'll close the hearing of the public and move on to presentations. If we can start out with, can we get a motion to receive and file the presentations?
So moved by Nard. Support Zinner.
If we can start with Martha T. Berry's monthly report with Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thanks for giving me a couple minutes here. We have a new process here.
No, we just have a trap floor. Don't worry.
All right. So I just want to take a couple of minutes today. We want to talk about finances mostly, but just a quick reminder of who we are. We are far more than just a nursing home like some people think. We do provide adult day services and laundry for JJC and opportunities for JGC for people who earn it. Let School. We're also that safety net. As of this morning, we had an attorney in our business offices thanking us because there was a resident that was discharged from another location and they would not receive her back because she did not have $11,000 to put down on it, and we were able to receive her at our facility. We are that safety net, and I just want to remind everybody that you are supporting our seniors in a great way in that way, and I thank you for that. We're going to talk a little bit about the numbers that we have so far. Recognize that the county executive actually contracted with Plant Moran Cressa to do a building analysis for Macomb County's medical care facility. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that. One of the things that we are expecting to be a little different, not so much in the items, but in terms of most recent charges. Also, they usually use a general contractor for everything, so the prices are going to be a little bit higher. We expect there to be some variations in that. We don't always have need of a GC because we have a licensed contractor as our maintenance manager, so that saves us some money from time to time. But we're looking forward to that. So just when we're talking about the numbers that we have here, just recognize that these are estimates. These are not quotes in most cases. As you know, we continue to work on the county's building as we have ability to do so. The question was put to me on the memo that I sent out last July. They'd like an update on those 4 projects that we put on that. Do you all have a copy of that memo? I did bring extra copies with me if you need that.
We didn't receive your information until today for the report.
Right.
You should have it here 10 days before the meeting, just as a matter of protocol, because you forget.
Okay.
The board requires all our department heads to have information to the committee 10 days before the agenda, so we can have it in our packet so we can review it ahead of time and be prepared instead of flying on the cuff, just so maybe you forgot. So I just want to let you know that.
Actually, I was not aware that it was required 10 days before. So
Okay, well,
thank
we
you.
know now. Thank
Yep,
you.
I do know now. I'll make sure it happens in the future. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so do you need a copy of the memo that was sent out July of last year? Does anybody need a copy of that for reference?
I mean, you can
Can you give us a capsule
Yeah,
of what
you
it said?
can, yeah, you
We're
can just,
supposed to read it while you're giving a presentation. It's not appropriate. Why don't we just table this till next month, Madam Chairwoman? Why don't we just table it until we got the appropriate information?
Well, the appropriate information is actually on the slide. This was just for a reference because the question was, they wanted an update on the memo from last year that, on those 4 items. So in case people weren't aware, like you might not have been here at the time, it'd be good for you to have that, but.
just leave them for the, after the
Okay,
meeting.
we'll do that. Okay. So the first item, 4 items that we had was the full HVAC rooftop upgrade. We discussed with F&O how they handled the jail and the morgue because they already upgraded the HVAC systems in those 2 areas. So we have an idea of how they work with that. The above numbers of 1.8 was from 2021. We estimated it to be around $2.2 million right now. But we've not done any ordering on that. The finance department has not released that money into a restricted fund as yet. So we're going to continue to pay attention to that item. The next item, we actually have a full PTAC, which is packaged terminal air conditioners, the ones that you have in the walls at hotels. That's what a PTAC is. We have several hundred of them in our nursing rooms and in our dining areas and things to help manage air conditioning, heat, and air in those areas. So right now we've received our first 75, and we've rewired the building to be able to connect with our environmental services platform to be more energy efficient. We spent roughly $155,000 on this, and we did apply for a small infection control grant on air handling that is going to help us offset that a little bit. So it may not be, the final number might not be that high, but I think it's about $65,000. Boilers, that was our biggest concern. We had a high pressure boiler and that needed repair and replacement. Turns out the platform that it was on was really in bad shape too. And then the 2 boilers up front were failing, and we did end up replacing those finally in January. We had to fully replace the pressure boiler first, and then the 2 boilers in front that were failing. So we replaced all the water tanks, and we've got 4 more boilers that need to be replaced, and we're actually working with an engineer because we believe we can replace those 4 with 3 because today's technology is so much more efficient than the old ones that require so much gas. So we're looking forward to perhaps saving money both on the number of boilers and on future energy on that. So far, we spent about $388,000 on that. So electrical switching and panels. Some switches we're coordinating with F&O because the powerhouse that's outside of our building connects both to the morgue and to the jail in addition to us, but some of the power actually has been routed through us into those other areas. And so they're moving those power links out and updating some of the panels because they're really, really old panels. So we had to replace one because we had a failure in that. But some of the other ones we're working with F&O on their larger contract to try and save money as well. Lighting, we have a more energy efficient lighting entirely on the first floor. It's completed. We wanted to kind of figure out what mistakes we were going to make on the first floor away from the resident areas before we got upstairs. We successfully transitioned some of the older bulb systems and the T8s out, so we have highly efficient LED lights in there. They're a lot cooler to manage, so we don't have some of the risks that you have with the older ones. And we spent about $156,000 so far on that. We're looking for that to be roughly $577,000 by the time we're done on the second and third floor as well. One of the items that we discussed with Commissioner Zhang at the last meeting had alluded to is we had the county, we had our state survey with the state fire marshals, and they're requiring us to actually change our security system for our doors. Right now we use magnetic locks, and they said that even though that is incredibly safe for the residents that wander, it is out of code because everybody has to be able to get out of any door at any time. So we have to replace our magnetic locks with physical latch locks and a paddle that allows a delay after 15 seconds or 30 seconds, depending on where you're at, to be able to get out of the facility at any place. that they want to. When that occurs, the exception to that is in a 100% special dementia area. So when that occurs, we need to connect that with our video platform for door access control as well. So we are actually upgrading to be able to connect directly with ComTech and the Sheriff's Department. So if we do have an elopement, or if they have an emergency issue in our community, they can access our cameras. Will be on the exact same platform as they have, and just with a push of a button, they'll be able to navigate that area. The new platform is really quite outstanding in that way. But we estimate that over the next couple of years to be between $1.2 and $1.5 million, and so far we've spent roughly $540,000 on that. So now the other question that was asked to me, what are you doing with the $6.2 million? And how much of it you used, how much is left? And so before I get into that a little bit, recognize that we were eligible for the employee retention credit because we had challenges in the previous years. This is, if you want, you can go to the reference at the bottom, because this comes word for word from that. This wasn't designed to be a windfall for us. It was designed specifically to give us a helping hand while we're still trying to run a business, knowing that we were negatively impacted by the COVID rules that we had in place. So the status of 6.2 million, ERC was put into our general fund, and these, all the things that you're seeing here is what we paid since in 2022 and to date here. And this has to do with our projects as well as our debt. As you recall, when the county decided not to help us out in last year with money, we asked you, and you were very generous in allowing us to slow pay the OPEB and pension, so that we could still take care of our residents with our staffing levels, and then we repaid that back. So we paid Macomb County back roughly $923,000 for the building use, and 1.29 roughly for OPEB. We also paid an end of the year retention bonus to the staff, thanking them for being heroes, for $265,000. Adding all the above to the status that we have to date of all the money we've invested in those first four projects, plus the regulatorily required upgrade, or in my view, downgrade to our door security system, we spent roughly $3.7 million. And we have roughly 4.475 left in the bank at this time. Where do we see ourselves in 3 years? Well, we're expecting a state of Michigan Medicaid cost settlement at the end of this year, and we hope it to be in our favor. What they do is they put every facility together on their cost report and then tell us how much we get from that. That also includes a rate increase, which we know based on our expenses, we can predict that it'll be in our favor. But up until that point, we're still going to be struggling, managing cash flow, because they have underpaid us for 3 years. Our census is one of the biggest areas that helps us with our revenue. And one of the reasons that we were eligible for the employee retention credit is their rules required us to suppress our census. So without getting into too much of it, we had to keep a number of beds open anytime we had a COVID issue in the building. And we did have those whenever we had visitors. So that was just part of the cost of doing business. Let's see. I'm happy to note that our budget, when we put it together, was expecting right around 190. We're at 201 right now, so it's coming back pretty strongly, and that'll help us. First few months we have lost money, but that was expected because of the number of things we just talked about. Our rate has been suppressed, our census has been suppressed, but all of those things are going to be coming back by the end of this year. I am also working on a panel with the state of Michigan, MDHHS, along with 3 organizations. The state of Michigan and our president has requested a rate process adjustment for Medicaid residents. They want to simplify how we get paid for long-term care. They have agreed that, that county medical care facilities are special, and as such, the county medical care facilities is going to have a different rate set to make sure that we can still be there for the safety net for those most in need. But we're in the process of that, and we do believe that that will be, overall, that should be at best cost neutral. Our hope is to get a little bit extra money on the building, because building agreement right now, the way that they manage our building expense really suppresses our ability to reinvest in it and get reimbursed for it. We're at the cap right now, and that is roughly about $900,000 a year is what is what we get reimbursed for on that. Is that right? Is that about right? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I just referred to my my controller, Jeff Ostermeyer. So make sure I'm not misspeaking any of these numbers. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Perna?
Thank you, Commissioner. When you decide you need improvements for Martha T. Berry, how close do you work with F&O?
We actually talk with them a lot about it. They tell us that, that they trust us because they've seen our work. So if we have, on the larger project that we had when we did when we did the expansion, we worked with them very closely, and they were working with us on the architect and things, and they were reviewing those larger construction docks. For things that we're doing right now, these are considered internal improvements. So we let them know what's going on, and they come over and see us once in a while, but we don't work directly with them because, in terms of actually having the work done in our area, but we do consult with them to see if we have the ability to save some money. For example, on Comtech, the stuff, they already had contracts on all of the video platform, the door access control platform, and the video cameras. So they already had done all the work with the RFPs on that, and we piggybacked on that agreement with them.
Because I would think that they would have larger buying power. Do you put RFPs out independently of F&O?
Sometimes we do, yes. We try and coordinate. For example, when we did the lighting in the parking lots, we tried to work with them on that. We were trying to work with them a couple of years ago when they were doing the work with the jail and with the morgue on the HVAC at the time to say, hey, can we tag team on that? That did not work out, and I don't know why. But so that's why we revisited with them and said, hey, how did you do that? They said, well, in that case, we got a general contractor because, you're taking it up 13 stories. You want to make sure that the liabilities outside you're right, they have their own liability, and they make sure that they manage that, those rooftops from 13 stories up. So I do from time to time work with them, but they don't always actually have the same abilities that we have, and we don't always have the same abilities they do. So it's on a case-by-case basis, Commissioner.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Van Sickle?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Afternoon.
On your slide where you were explaining or talking about the 6.2 million, you listed expenditures as 3+ million and in the bank as 4+ million.
Mm-hmm.
That adds up to well over 7 million. So I don't see that slide as actually addressing the 6.2 million.
Right, and that's done with intention. I'm glad you brought it up, because me trying to say exactly how the 6.2 million is like saying, let's take a look at any district here. How much in taxes did you come out? To what department they did? How much do you have left? Really, we put it all together and we do our best to manage it inside the context of what our needs are. I work very closely with my board to make sure we have that. And we do have other revenues coming in because we have billings that we do as well monthly for Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurances. So that money is constantly rolling. And for me to, the 6.2 is not an appropriations in that way. It is simply money that's helping us replace for what we already spent in 2022.
Yeah, I know, but that wasn't the question. So can we consider the whole 4+ million that's still in the bank as part of the 6.2?
I don't understand the question.
Well, in explaining the 6.2 million, you specified 3+ million as being spent and 4+ million as being in the bank still. Can we consider that 4+ million that's still in the bank all from the 6.2 million?
No, it's a lot like saying, all right, you paid your bills and you got two paychecks that you put in there. How much came out of the last paycheck and how much came out of this paycheck? When we put in the general fund, we have needs that we look at and we pay our bills based on that. This was a general fund from 2021. It was a receivable that we had coming in that we put into our general fund, and we're using it as best as we can. But I think the question might be is, did we appropriate and allocate the 6.2 specifically? And the answer to that is no, we do not do that, because this is not an appropriations budget and it's not an allocation budget. So to ask that question, I can't answer it in the way that I think you want it, because you want to say how much is left of that, because we want to be able to use that for something. And I can't tell you that, because I can tell you how much I have left, and I can tell you that my monthly bills are about $3 million, but I can't tell you that this is the exact amount that came out of 6.2, any more than we can say how much is left of somebody's district in taxes left, and what department have they gone into.
So from that explanation, the 3.7 or whatever it was that you've already spent is also unknown as to how much came from where?
It came from a general fund. So I can tell you that without question. But what I can't tell you is how much of it came from 6.2 and how much came from our billings, because we're working on projects as we're able to. We're doing cash forecasting out to September to make sure that we have good cash flow. We recognize that, we have a lot of capital needs that we have, but we also have to take care of our residents, so our staff is there. So we do cash forecasting to make sure that we have a cash flow that allows us to, number one, pay our bills. And we are probably the strongest in bill paying of any of the nursing homes in the community. I won't get into that right now, but I do know without question that we are good in the community. We're good for the community. But to say, hey, how much did you appropriate out of that 6.2? I cannot say this is how much is left of it, because it's all general fund.
Okay, would it be fair to say without the 6.2, you wouldn't have any of the money left in the bank?
No, because if we didn't have the 6.2, I would have made a lot of other cuts that I would needed to make, and we would have been really a lot closer than what we need to be, than what we want to be. A good business has a couple of months worth of money in the account to be able to handle expenses, and we're not there. And we're not there because we're still recovering from the PHE, which is the public health emergency, which isn't done until next week.
Okay.
Yeah. So I again, one of the things that I do is I manage. So I wouldn't allow us to run out of money, but I'd have to make some pretty big decisions and say no to a lot of stuff really hard. But now I have the opportunity to continue on with some of the projects we talked about, to make sure that the county's facility is well maintained and has a good reputation for the county, as well as my staff.
And I was reading in the Macomb Daily where they did an interview with you, and they quoted you as saying that in 2022 you had a 1.3 million surplus.
I think it was loss.
Pardon?
I don't know if they did that right. I don't think they said that right. I don't know. I don't remember it. As soon as I read it, I forgot about it. But
Well, if it was supposed to be a loss and that was reported as a surplus, I would have remembered it pretty significantly.
right. Well,
Excuse me, if I may, Chair. I think it
Yes.
said 1.3 million deficit.
Oh, deficit.
Yeah.
I thought
Oh,
so. Yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Yep. So yeah, we had a loss, but again, it was expected because of the nature of being in the public health emergency and the regulation that was put upon us to suppress our census. Also, we had 15% roughly in the last 2 years inflation rate, and according to the Bourne Amendment, we're supposed to be getting that money immediately back to reimburse us at the rate that we expend it up until a certain point. And they gave us 2.5% each of the last 2 years. So, we're in a deficit for that. That's why, I let you know, we're expecting to get a catch up from the state at the end of this year, because they did send us a letter saying, just want you to know, we will look at your cost report for 2022 and apply it back into 2021 and 2020.
So the catch-up would be against 2022
in 2021, yes.
and 2021?
Yes.
And when will they be announcing that? Do you know?
I don't. It's generally the fourth quarter.
Okay.
So, but we won't know what we're getting until we get the letter. So just so that, for the commissioner's sake, this is something that happens. It is a normal course of doing business with long-term care. There's an ebb and flow of cash that comes and goes, and you have to be able to manage through that. When they set out the rates, they use previous years' cost reports to give you the future year's reimbursement rate. And they stack them all up, all 442 of them, and they put a point in time and say, okay, you can, if you spend up to this amount, you can get whatever amount you spent. But if you spend over that, you don't get it back. So that happens every year, and you don't know what the rest of the state has done until they put that all together. And then, again, we manage from that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Zinner?
Thank you, Chair. Kevin, when you set out to ask for this grant, is it a grant that you got?
Employee retention credit?
Yeah, credit, this credit. Were you notified when were you notified that you were going to get it? That it was
The day we got the checks. As a matter of fact, we had actually been calling the IRS since July, and I had actually 2 of my staffers that spent hours trying to figure it out. And one of them said, we don't know. It's sitting on somebody's desk. We just don't know. I reached out to a number of my peers. One got it, but she had applied for it through her payroll system, which I was heartened by. But we couldn't do that because it was after the fact. She actually had it currently. We didn't have her same payroll system, and it was never baked into our payroll system to be able to do that. So anybody that put in the 941X, like me, none of them had received it. As a matter of fact, some of them still, even in this community, I have relationships with one of the administrators here locally. They said that they put it in September. They still haven't received it. The ones that I talked to in our medical care facility still haven't received it. But some people are getting it in. One person up north did get 1 month, and then they got audited. And then we had another one of the facilities that did early on, that put it in September of 2021. They're getting audited, but they have no money from it yet. So it's really like Wild West out as far as that money goes when it comes in.
So you really didn't know if you were getting the money for sure?
I did not know. I had to act like it was coming in because when you're working with the IRS, you have to go by their rules. And because we have an accrual budget, I have to accrue it into the year in which it was earned, which was 2021. But I really had no expectation of it until I thought it'd be coming in right as soon as we were getting our update from the state of Michigan, which will be 3rd or 4th quarter of this year. I actually even sent a letter when we were talking about the door access control with our attorney. And he asked me, can you afford it? And I said, well, we have to. I'm going to float it in between this year and next because we got to get it done. You know, and I have about roughly $900,000 that I put in that. And I said, you know, I did say at the time, I said it'll help us manage it because we got $2 million it'll help us manage cash flow because we got $2 million coming from the county for HVAC, which we need to do. And I know we're going to get our settlement from the state of Michigan at the end of this year. I said, I know some people are getting a trickle now, and that was on December 20th. I said, but it's still monopoly money to us. So I had no expectation because our efforts at that point had been thwarted entirely.
My in-laws had a business for many years, and some of the patrons become friends and whatever, and I'm sure they did. They worked. But one thing that my mother-in-law would say, I can remember hearing her at the marina when I would be there, CIF, cash in fist, before certain things would be done, or let go, or whatever it was. So you didn't know you were getting, for sure, the cash in fist.
Not at all. Not when. I was really hoping I'd get it. But in fairness to everybody's perspective, and I know that hindsight isn't wisdom, and I know that second guessing isn't strategy, but I understand the perspective of some that said you should have disclosed. But truthfully, I understand your perspective, but I did not expect it to come in this year.
Did you
this last
ask,
year.
did you call Mr. Deldon the second you, that day you received the information? Or very
Al
certain?
Lorenzo, I did, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and I put a call in here, but I did not connect with anybody, and I regret that, because I know I put it in, but I did not talk to anybody here on it as soon as the cash came in. I talked to the treasurer as well. So, again, my apologies here, but as soon as I got it, I was excited. So I was letting people know, hey, this is pretty exciting. But I did not connect with anybody here.
well, we know the building needs a lot of work. I don't have any problem with the 2 million under the situations, because we know what that building needs. I'm done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Center. Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. Are you going to send a budget amendment over for the 6.2 million?
No,
Why not?
because that
It's
was.
just that there's a question that's been raised, and what's your reasoning
I
why?
understand. The county execs asked me the same question, and I still said no, because this was money that was earned in 2021. It was audited by our group for 2021. It was revenue that was put in 2021, as well as into the county's budget. The county's audit had it as well, and it was audited successfully. So those were revenues that were earned in there. So it's a receivable that gets there, and the receivable is designed to replace all the other money, or at least some of the other money that we lost. So we're paying bills, we're catching up on things that we couldn't do before with it, that we had approved by our board, and working with them for the facility, and for debt management and for cash flow. So our budget for this year stands. We're working on the projects as we're able to, but this wasn't a windfall that we're putting more money into, because this was money that was already put in 2021. So if, it also would be unprecedented to do that, because there has been no request for any money for a budget amendment in the last 3 years, actually since I've been there, for any budget amendment that comes out of Martha T. Berry. It's unprecedented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hall?
Thank you. Quick question. Kevin, you just said our budget for 2023 stands. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm looking at the budget. It says capital outlays, 600,000.
In R&M, you have a 300,000. So
Excuse me?
our repair and maintenance, you have about 300,000 as well.
Okay. And
So
you
those are
just
the two
said
that
you spent 3.7 million.
Yep, but that was from previous projects. We have construction and project that were in process that we're using as well.
When you spend monies, you don't need to amend your budget and get approval from this commission?
No,
You don't?
no.
That's just arbitrarily, you can do that on your own?
No, I actually work with my board on that. So
Okay,
as we
your
spend money, I
board
work with
is
my
giving
board.
you approval to spend $3.7 million.
Our board works with me on project by project. So yeah, so we work with them on the capital. But remember, the capital is over years too. So just like you don't have, when you have a 5-year capital project here, what happens with that? You don't every year have a new appropriation, right? You have an idea of where you want to go. The projects that we have to have, we've been talking about for years. I do want
I
to.
understand all that.
Yeah.
I'm just talking strictly the budgetary amount.
Mm-hmm.
There was $3.7 million by your presentation spent last year. Your board gave you approval to make capital improvements to the building. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, you're putting two together. Remember, that was a combination of different things that we spent it on. So, yeah, my board manages me and the budget once it's approved here. So every year we put a budget here based on the joint operating agreement, right? And that is an enterprise budget. It's not an appropriations budget. So that enterprise budget is put in place, and we manage that throughout the year because of the things that happen, like we're talking about. If I have, in the emergency, for example, the PHE, which is a huge issue, if I had to wait for an appropriations change there, I would put people at risk. So we let our board know, hey, we're gonna have to spend more money in this area, we're spending less than this. We didn't have agency in our building, and I had to start getting agency because people were leaving. So we had to make those adjustments midterm to be able to manage some of that. Anytime we had, significant bonuses or things like that that we wanted to share, I got my board's approval on that. When we talk about in our strategic planning that we did a couple of years ago, we put an idea out of all the things that we wanted to have done in the next few years. And these are part of those projects that we do. So yes, they're well aware of it, and we just have to do it as we're able to, because as you well know, we don't get a lot of support for this building for our seniors, and we have to be able to be nimble in how we manage it and still maintain an outstanding facility, because you want a great facility. I know you do, and you have one, and I want to keep it that way. So, but it does take a lot more flexibility that my board has, that they give us that support and say, yep, you're doing fine here. No, you're gonna have to slow down here. We have those discussions.
So just so that I understand what you said, for capital improvements to the building, your board approves them, and you don't need approval from the county executive or the board of commissioners?
It depends on it actually depends on the
Oh, I'm
project.
just repeating what you just
Right,
said.
it depends on the project. So,
So it's
so what
subject.
we did, yeah, some of them we do. So when there's an expansion or things, then we go through, like we talked about with F&O, and then Mark Delden signs off on it, and the county exec signs off, and we bring it here. So that large project, we do that. But if we're replacing things, we don't do that, because this is simply replacing stuff. So it's not a capital project that is a new construction. This is simply replacing what we simply have right now. So no, that's not required here. Okay. If you want to put it in the JOA in the future, you want to say anytime you want to change a boiler out, if you want to add that to the joint operating agreement, I'm comfortable with that. This is your building. But no, I don't have to do that right now.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. So I have a quick question. First of all, as Commissioner Brown said earlier, I would appreciate if you got the presentation to us a little earlier so we have time to review it before the meeting.
That makes good sense. My apologies to the commission.
No
I'll make sure it
problem.
happens again.
My second thing was, you present your budget every year to this board, correct, in October?
That is correct.
Okay, so the commission on general, we don't carry over, the way I understand it is like, we don't carry over our budgets from year to year. So if you have money left over in your budget from last year, it still has to be allocated for this year. This 6.2 million, was that presented in the budget when it was approved in October?
No, it was not.
So I would think that you would have to at least bring back a budget amendment to add that to your budget, because it wasn't approved in your budget when it was voted on in October. So I think there would be a budget amendment that would be necessary to come through this commission to at least allocate that money, even though it was left over from before, because you're showing us all of the funds. When you present your budget in October, you're showing us what you have in the bank from previous years. This 6.2 at that time was not in there, that was left over.
Yeah, but it was in revenue from 2021, so I would have to make a budget adjustment to 2021, not 2022, because that's when the revenue was earned.
But you still are spending it in 2023.
Yep. Because we don't have an appropriations budget. That's the biggest challenge that commissioners have on appropriations versus enterprise. Our enterprise budget, it's like McDonald's. So if when you put a budget together, you say, this is what we hope is happening. But if all of a sudden they have a ton more people, and all of a sudden their expenses go up because they're selling a lot more food, they're going to go out and buy more food, and they're going to say, okay, this is great because we're doing better. Or if they say, wait a minute, we didn't have nearly the people we expected to, we're going to have a huge drop in that, right? And all of a sudden they have this new special that goes on that comes out from the corporate office. They're managing that budget on the fly. It is a business tool. It's good for transparency with this community, with the commissioners, so that you're aware of generally how we work on that. But my board is involved and invested in that, on a month-by-month basis.
No, and I understand that, and I think the board should be approving the expenditures from the $6.2 million. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I think that there has to be a budget amendment to add that into the budget for this year because the money came in this year. That would be I don't know for sure, but that would be the way I would understand it.
I'd actually be double dipping it because it was in 2021 that the revenue came in. The cash came in this year and it offsets the revenue. So when you have an increase in cash.
But did you have a deficit in 2021?
I did.
Yeah, so you showed the deficit, but you never showed when the money came back.
No,
So
I had deficit in 2022.
Or you had the deficit in 2022, but you
Yeah.
never showed when that deficit was balanced with the 6.2 in the budget. So that's why, you know what I'm saying? Because otherwise you should still be in the deficit. According to this board, the way we're looking at it.
Okay, well, you know, our final numbers actually will show itself out after we get our audit done, and we'll talk about it then. But historically, I have not done a single amendment in the 7 years I've been here, and what I heard is historically, it's not happened. The county sent us a lot of money for, and a lot of equipment for the PHE. There was no budget amendment requested on that. When I lost money, there was no budget amendment on that, when I lost a ton of money on that because of what was happening there. And it's because traditionally, my board, the Department of Human Services Board, is the one that manages on behalf of the county commission, the budget there. So we're having these conversations all the time in
Right.
in our meetings. But I will tell you, in 7 years, I've never had a request for any budget amendment, even when the county was helping us with the federal CARES Act money. There was never a request for it. So I'm baffled as to why they're asking for it now when they gave me almost over 7 million. They gave me more than the 6 million, but there was never a request for it. So I'm confused as to why that's happening right now.
Okay. Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you. Kevin, you're not the only one who's confused. I'm not an accountant, but I've heard you clearly state that you didn't know about the $6.2 million until last November.
Until December
December.
27th, yeah. Until when it came
December
in,
of
yes.
2022.
Yes.
And I've heard you say 4 or 5 times that that money was covered in the 2021 budget.
It was,
And that it's not, it was in the 2021 budget, so there's no reason to go back to it. Well, if you didn't know about it until December of 2022, how is it in the 2021 budget?
well, that's a great question. Again, it's the difference between an enterprise budget and an appropriations budget. County commissioners work on year over year, and you have a beginning and an end time of that. We have an enterprise budget that says that revenues are recorded when they are earned, and expenses when they are used. It doesn't mean that we paid for it. It means when you have an expense, you have to put it in the month that you had that expense. So if I have a therapy done for a resident and it cost me $8,000 at the end of November, I have to record it at the end of November. I might not pay it until January, but that expense is recorded in that month.
Okay.
So in the same way, when we have revenue come in, we earn that revenue according to the IRS. And again, you can refer to it. I put the reference up there if you want to go directly to their website for the ERC. What it says is, this is for the years of 2020 and 2021, for the first 3 quarters of 2021. So when they say that, I have to, in good faith, put the revenue in where it was earned. And because I recorded, I had to put my payroll numbers in based on those first 3 quarters for second and third quarter of 2021. All right. Now, I didn't do it until until early 2022. All right. But that doesn't matter. I still had to record it back there because that's where the revenue was earned.
So if you had to record it back before, that means that the reports that we got from you about 2021 and 2022 before you back recorded it were actually inaccurate and needed to be updated before they could come into what you said the new reality is after receiving the money in December of 2022?
We actually did put that money into the audit and gave it to the finance department. So they did see that money. They saw it in the March audit.
March of this year.
No, 2022.
You put the money that you
In
received in
2021.
December of 2022 in the March 2022 audit.
I put the revenue from applying for it from March of 2022 in the 2021 budget. Am I saying that right? I thought it was, yeah.
So suppose you didn't actually receive it, then the revenue report would have been incorrect.
No, the revenue report's accurate. I just haven't received the cash on it. And I might not have gotten the cash on it till 2024, at which point my receivable, which is still there, it's like you get a bill for somebody. You say, okay, I got a bill for doing my gutters, okay? If you don't pay that, you still got the bill. But you might be 4 or 5 months in paying it, but the bill is still there. The same thing is with a receivable. I have a receivable at the time was $5.8 million, but in trying to get with the IRS, they said, we don't know. So I have this receivable in 2021. I didn't receive it at all in the first 11 months and in 26 days in 2022. I didn't receive it. I had no expectation. On 12/27, I got it. I recorded it as cash in and reduced my receivable. So my cash went up, my receivable went down at that point. But if I hadn't received it, if I got it in 2025, the receivable still stands there through all of 2023, receivable stands through all of 2024, and but if it lasts too long, then Jeff and I get together and say, okay, is this a good, or I might have to write this off or not? So we had those discussions. If we don't get the money, do we write it off, and if so, how much, right? Because it looked like a big loss, and it would. But at the time we recorded it, according to generally accepted accounting standards for through the Government Accounting Standards Board of what an accrual budget is.
I don't even know where to begin. I have to think about this for a little bit. Thank you.
No problem. Commissioner Sabatini.
Good thing we got an accountant here. Kevin, I clearly understand what you're saying. I'm going to try and help you out here.
Okay.
So when we have audited financial statements, basically what Kevin is saying, I'm going to try and clear this up for the board, is that he booked a receivable back in 2021. He received that money in 2022. Now, there comes a point when auditors are going to look at whatever that receivable is and say it may or may not be collectible at a later date. And then the client would have to substantiate and say, yes, it is, and prove that to the auditors. So basically, our budgets are operational budgets. We're not approving balance sheets, and that receivable is actually on his balance sheet. So when we get our audited financial statements from our auditors for the county, we actually are provided a balance sheet as well, so we could look at our balance sheet. But this is a balance sheet item. It's not an income statement item, which we're typically used to looking at all the time here. So I totally understand that you received that at a later date, which that's what happened. You notified everybody when you received the money. And then obviously book that receivable. So there's an entry that your controller was going to make and basically lower the receivable and increase the other side of that transaction. So I totally understand what happened there. I think the other interesting point here is with our agreement with Martha T. Berry is that you're responsible for that building. So it's under your jurisdiction how you want to fix that building. Now, typically in the real estate side, and Commissioner Romano can agree to this, and Commissioner Wallace would too if she's here, is that typically the property owner would, bill you for improvements to the building, but that's not the case. That's not the agreement that we have here with Martha T. Berry. So Martha T. Berry is responsible for fixing that building to their leisure. Now, they may or may not do that, which personally, I don't like that part of our agreement because technically it's a county building, and I like to maintain our county buildings. This is just a one-off. So Kevin's in, kind of in a pickle there, to say the least, that he has to upgrade his building or do those capital improvements based on the budget that he has. I know that you came to us last year during budget season and asked for that additional money for those specific improvements that were dire to you, and now you've received this extra money. So I think that's a conversation for a later date. I think what Kevin's trying to do here today is really explain where this money has gone and what he wants to do with it. Whether he decides to do that, what he wants to do with that money is, I think, under his jurisdiction. But I think what the board would like is to be part of that process. So, thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to chime in today, but I saw a lot of back and forth communications and questions. So hopefully, and if commissioners certainly have any questions on this, I can answer those questions. But I just wanted to chime in and kind of help the commissioners understand a little bit more.
Grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Sabatini. Yeah, I think there's a lot of, we're hearing different information from different people, and that's part of the problem. So I see no more speakers, so I will close the presentation from Mr. Evans. Thank you very much this evening for coming out. And we'll move on to item B, and that's the Veteran Service 2023 First Quarter Report.
Chair, did we need to do a receive and file on that?
I think I did for both together, so after this one.
Okay.
Hopefully yours won't last this long.
I don't have that much stuff.
We hopefully won't have as many questions for you.
Yes.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Good.
Exhausting, tiring, but, so we have the first quarter report, which is January through March. We have the zip code report, and then Sharon said that she did send you the GDX, the geographical data. Did you all receive that in time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good, because that just kind of came out last week. It normally comes out in June, so we got it really early, unexpected. So our latest numbers for Macomb County is 42,000 veterans, 578, and we have 9,365 registered for healthcare.
All right.
So I don't see all 42,000, but the goal is to see all 42,000. And then the only other data I wanted to mention, and I flip it over, is our outreaches. So we are doing more and more outreaches like we did prior to the pandemic. So that is a godsend. So we can get into the community, get our name known and meet the people. So we had 20 in the first quarter. The last time I reported to you, we talked about moving money because we had so many psych evaluations. Well, we only had 7 the first quarter. Maybe it's the winter months and people were in Florida and they're now coming back. Other than that, we're seeing more people. You can see that by the first quarter this year versus the first quarter last year. Do you all have, and our burial allowances have gone up because we increased our allowances. So this time last year, we spent 14,000 in burial. This year, we spent 30,000. So that's double. So hopefully that trend will go up and we can help more people in need.
Thank you.
Is there any questions?
Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. It's always interesting to see the breakdowns like it is. And I'm grateful to see the more outreach going on, and we got more staff over there, and you don't let any ground grow under your feet. You're always moving. I appreciate that. This is not directly related to your report, but there's been a movement amongst the county about communities passing resolutions calling themselves Purple Heart communities. This board has been asked to do something similar. Are you familiar with any of that?
Yes and no. I'm not familiar with the process. I am familiar with going through the Purple Heart organization to make yourself a Purple Heart community. All those details,
Does it mean anything to you in terms of, I mean, what I understand is just a recognition that the county, if the board decides to pass it, that the county of Macomb is a Purple Heart community, recognizing the sacrifices of veterans who earned a Purple Heart. Does that translate?
I would have to look into that in more detail, and I have not before.
Well, you got other things
'cause
to
it
do. I
didn't
don't think it's
apply
a
to
priority
me.
for you, but.
But I can look into that to see, okay, if we do this, what is it saying?
Yeah.
Because as you well know, you can go to Lowe's, and Lowe's has a parking spot just for veterans.
Right.
I mean, Lowe's has done that, but let me look into that.
I'll send you the wording. You can look at that. Just because if we did that, does it accrue any benefits to our veterans? Does it help you do your job as on behalf of all the county veterans? I don't fully understand. I mean, many communities have passed it, and I'm all about saying we'll support the Purple Heart and recognize that, we serve as sacrifices of our veterans. But beyond that, is there anything else? That's what I'm curious about. So I'll send that to you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
I
Appreciate
will
it.
look into it.
Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
I just want to say excuse me, I just want to say thank you. I have been in Macomb County, I don't know, 50-some years, and I personally have referred veterans to the department and to the person. And I'm not saying this to blow smoke. all of them have been very satisfied. I've never learned as much information as what is available to veterans until I sat on this board. And I disseminate that information as quickly as I get it, because there are veterans out there still, as you said, that they really don't know what benefits they have coming to them, but through you, through your advertisement, whatever, through all your billboards, so they make themselves available, and then the questions are asked, does that include me? Well, they're veterans, sure it includes you, but they're not sure. So whatever you're doing, just keep magnifying it. Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I do have one more thing. Last week when I was at our training, there was over 500,000 claims submitted since the PACT Act, which was August 10th. 500,000 claims nationwide. Right now, they have over 70,000 old appeals still pending, and those are appeals that were submitted before 2018. New appeals have a new timeline because Congress set the timeline. The old appeals don't have a timeline, so they'll get to it, but this is a priority. This is not. So I have a handful of those. Some of the other things that I kind of learned was, and I think I know I forwarded it to you, Commissioner Brown. There was a report that the VA that I got a hold of. It's right on the VA's website, and it's compensation statistical data, and it really breaks down Gulf War, Vietnam, and it was just the compensation part, which might have been 40 or 50 pages of the 260-page report. And when I pulled that out, I'm like, this is a lot of good data. Does it break it down to zip code? No. Does it break it down to state? No. But it really breaks it down in different eras. It breaks it down into how many claims were received, what is the number. I've always told everybody the number one claim to the VA is hearing loss. Not anymore. So it depends on your, as I say, your wartime era. So for my folks, it's like knees. But for Vietnam, it's tinnitus. Tinnitus is separate from hearing loss. It's ringing in the ears. Everybody assumes it's one of the same, and they would rate it the same, but they don't. It's a separate rating than hearing loss. So it's really good data to read. Now, granted, I don't bring it to here because it's just, like I said, 50 pages of just VA data. But did I send that to you, Commissioner Brown? Did you receive
I
it?
think so, yeah.
It's
pretty
in your
overwhelming.
email?
Well, I was kind of overwhelmed by it.
Yes. If you want to share it with your fellow commissioners, because Commissioner Romano would probably like to see it and just see it's very, yeah. And now you kind of, our
Well, how about if
GDX
you
reports.
present it to us so we know what we're looking at? Because I looked at it, well, excuse me, Madam Chairman, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
It's voluminous, and I get lost in all the data, and
It's data. That's the key. It's data.
it's data.
It's
a lot of
letting
it.
us know. I feel, I've been here now 14 years in the county, and I feel that although our numbers are going down per veteran, the amount of claims are going up. That we do see. So in 10 years, we might have only 30,000 veterans versus 42,000 veterans. But will the staff that I have today be needed because of the care that is needed for the veterans? That's, something to look at.
Yes.
I think it's a reflection of the fact that we've got more service officers and people are more out, you're out there more. The county's making it more aware. Our department's doing a good job outreaching, and that's driving the claims. I mean, that's what's going on. I mean,
It's driving our claims.
Clear
I mean,
it
this just shows what we do. I can't show you what the rest of the state does, but I can show you what I do. And then we can go from there. But I can pull that data down and just kind of give you some cliff notes at our next.
And you don't have to say, if you just send it to us and we can share it with the board, just clip those as an aside, we might have to take time with
Okay.
the board at a meeting perhaps, but we can share it with them all and,
Laura, compact.
No, I'll give you Cliff. No, Cliff means just in an email, this is what this means. And then, because it's nice that, my job is to educate you, so when you talk to your constituents, you're like, I'm not a veteran, then you're aware on how to have that same conversation
Right.
with, oh, okay, this is on the PAC list. This is, on the Agent Orange list. You're aware that these lists, these presumptives exist. So,
Well, thank you. Seeing no more speakers, and we already have motion support, so please call the roll.
thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Motion passes 10-0.
Moving on to department recommendations, starting with a budget amendment for the Health Department for fiscal year 2020-2023 for MDHHS Comprehensive Planning, Budgeting, and Contracting Emerging Threats Grant Agreement for $534,661. And Ms. Cook, Mr. Cox?
So, motion to.
Yeah, motion to receive.
Support, Perna.
Good
you.
afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Special thank you to those commissioners that were able to join us at the Verkulen tour for the Health and Human Services tour. That was really nice to have that conversation with those commissioners, and hopefully we can do something similar in the future and have commissioners that weren't able to fit in their schedules to join us. But just wanted to start off by saying thank you. Personally, I really appreciate those that did attend that. I'm here to ask for a budget amendment in the amount of $534,661 from MDHHS for our CPBC Emerging Threats Grant. This grant consists of two funding sources that this grant is supporting: COVID immunizations and the U4U, which stands for United for Ukraine, tuberculosis services. That both make up the $534,661. Most of these funds will be used to offset personnel cost, with about just under 100,000 being going towards the support operationally of the TB program, which would be used to purchase the TB tests themselves for those refugees. To date, Macomb has, out of all the counties in the state, seen the most humanitarian parolees for Ukraine through the U4U program. In Macomb, we've already seen about 720 individuals that we've screened for TB since July of 2022. Those numbers have gone down, since that height period of in the fall of 2022, but we continue to see those numbers trickle into our clinics for TB services as a part of their requirements as parolees. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Commissioner Brown.
Speaking of TB, no, just kidding.
Good one,
Just
Good one,
kidding.
Commissioner.
But you said 744 cases? Is that what you said?
What was that?
You said 744 reported cases of tuberculosis?
They're not cases, they are our screening. So a requirement to come as a part of that program, you have to get screened for TB. Just because TB is endemic in other areas in other parts of the world, so we want to make sure that those individuals seek treatment and not
How
spread
much of that
TB.
are we showing up in our county? Do we have a trend line, or is it,
Yeah,
we had the
very-
spikes a few years ago, but that's
Yeah, so
passed.
on a whole, we have seen TB numbers increase over the past few years. I think that is attributed to more global travel and also becoming more diverse. Certain areas, people that travel from different countries, we tend to see most of the TB cases in those individuals that have travel associated patterns to their lives.
But due to the flux of immigrants from other countries, because we're taking on so many immigrants from other places.
Some of
perhaps,
that
as
does
well.
come, right.
Are there any other emerging threats that we need to be aware of?
I was trying to get out of here quickly, but we can go down this road of emerging threats. But
Well, I
know,
mean, significant. What's relative risk, right? And what's significant? What's
Right. Offhand, I continue to sound the alarm and concern about getting our children and our families immunized. Our immunization rates are still consistently low. We've seen a little bit of a rock bottom and starting to see increases in those rates. But for example, we were well above 70% for coverage rates. We are now only at 62%. That's concerning to me. And we will start to see things like chickenpox, which we've had, some of the outbreaks and other communicable diseases pop up. So when we talk about emerging threats, those illnesses like polio and other things that are very concerning. I think to not be doomsday here, we are starting to see a lot more providers come online and start providing those immunizations. We also have different surveillance tools now, like our sewage surveillance that we worked very closely with Public Works Office on, that can expand, rather than just looking for COVID, things like polio and measles. We have that capability now, and so that's what we're exploring. So I think more technology to kind of pick up on surveillance and do proactive reach outs to those areas and education to our communities, which is a good thing to offset that concern of those immunization rates. But we really need to get people immunized. So if you can speak to your families or point them in our direction, please encourage them to seek that information out and have conversations with their healthcare providers.
During the pandemic, we had to shift resources to COVID, so our immunization program plummeted, right? Are we back up to where we need to be in terms of immunization staffing and all of that whole program, or are we still trying to come back to where we were before?
Yeah, I don't think our staffing was never an issue because we continue to do regular immunizations during COVID. What we saw was providers stop. They closed their doors and they weren't providing immunizations. And frankly, some opinions about immunizations themselves have changed because of the pandemic. And that's a part of that too. And trying to approach that with education and access for healthcare. Some of our county residents, it's not easy to get an appointment, or it takes some time, or don't have a trusted healthcare provider that they have. So we continue to do a lot of work in that area.
Do you have the resource you need to do what you need to do in this area? I mean,
We do. In terms of personnel resources, we've been lucky there. We have continued to struggle with hiring, but I think that's a problem that we've always had, especially being competitive with our private counterparts in healthcare. Hospitals have struggled with nurses especially. We are in a really good spot right now. So we've done some, I think, really great work of attracting people with different types of other alternative models that they would probably get in schedules in a hospital setting, which is appealing for a lot of our nurses that come to us. I think where we need to look at is alternate service models. We're really looking at ways that we can get out in the community more in-house, and then also mobile units. Some exciting things hopefully coming soon from us, from the health department, and that you'll be hearing about ways to reach our communities, not just at our traditional clinic locations in our health department.
well, we elected officials are duty bound to protect and serve the community. And protection is not only law enforcement, but it's health services and so many other things. And the department's done a great job. And so we look forward to hearing more recommendations from you on ways that we can protect the public through health. So
Thanks, Commissioner.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Commissioner Sabatini.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Andrew. Just a couple questions here, clarity. So is the state giving us the $534,000 and change to increase?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then in regards to your budget line item changes, so it looks like you're reducing your COVID immunization by about $50,000 and increasing the U4U by $119,000. So you're taking a little off of the COVID, but you still are allocating $415,000 towards COVID immunizations.
Correct.
Okay, so you're still anticipating and spending that amount of money for immunizations for this year on the
Correct.
COVID side?
We're still doing, so we've rolled COVID IMS into our regular immunization program.
Okay,
We're still seeing, last 2 months, we've seen about 250 people that are still getting COVID immunizations. So we can bill that directly, those services to that COVID immunization line.
So you said 250 people have gotten that immunization, and we've allocated $415,000 for 250 COVID immunizations?
Correct. That's just monthly.
That's a pretty expensive shot.
Well, we're not paying for the shot. That is the expense of the personnel to support that. So that offsets our county general dollars that would have to go towards that personnel.
And I know when we say we're not paying for that shot, but the state is giving us the money to allocate towards that service. So indirectly, the taxpayer is still paying for that shot.
Correct.
Just Macomb County directly is not, it's being allocated from the state.
That's a correct statement.
And then the last question was in regards to this document. It said something in here to refer to attachment B, but there's no attachment B in the document that was provided to us. Just wondering if you could just follow up with the board and provide us that attachment.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, please call the roll. Thank you.
Motion passes 10-0.
Moving on to item B, budget amendment, Macomb County Action, Michigan State Housing Development Authority, MSHDA, Emergency Solutions Grant, in the amount of $62,767. Cook, how are you? Motion to recommend to full board.
So moved by Nard.
Support.
All right, motion and support.
Thank
Hello.
you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a budget amendment request to reduce our budget in our emergency services grant by $62,767. When the budget was created, it was estimated that the budget would be $342,235. When the finals numbers came in from MSHDA, it was actually $279,468, which makes the difference of $62,767, for which we're asking for the reduction.
Any questions?
Like reductions.
Seeing no speakers, please call the roll.
Where did you get off easy today, Joe?
Right.
We like reductions.
Thank you, Commissioners.
I will open it up to public participation. If anyone wishes to speak at this time, they have 3 minutes. Seeing no one from the public, I'll close public participation. Moving on to commissioners' comments. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday, the Macomb County Sheriffs had their Honor Guard Spaghetti Dinner fundraiser. They posted it on social media. I talked to their media guru and said notification to us would have been nice.
Thank you.
Because there was just 2 of us that were there, Don and I, and we picked it up on Facebook at about 3 o'clock. So they said in the future, they will notify us of these types of activities. I know some of us do social media, some of us don't, but it would have been nice had we been made aware. So I just want to let you know I did do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Hall, for bringing that up, because honestly, I felt bad that I missed it. Like, I didn't realize that we weren't invited. Like, I thought I just missed something, and I was like, I actually felt guilty, like, because I was like, well, because you guys were there, and I seen that you guys were there, and I'm like, oh, I must have missed it. I would have went, like, so yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Way to go, Joe.
Oh,
Commissioner
decided.
Saul.
My.
My.
Thank you, Chair.
Wait, hold on, wait,
I just want to thank Commissioner Hall for
doesn't show
allowing
up in mine.
the National Gun Violence Awareness Day proclamation on his agenda for tomorrow. There was a little bit of miscommunication, and so it wasn't added, but it is there now. So thank you, Commissioner Hall, for allowing to add that to your committee. And this is a proclamation that we as a board have supported in the past. So I hope that you will consider supporting it again. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'm only going to allow Maya to do that, so don't the rest of you try it too.
All right. Seeing no other speakers, motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Support.
All right, have a good evening, everyone.
See you tomorrow.